Hey, this is Pete Martin from the band Summer Sleep. You're listening to The Ocean Never Ends, and a big thanks to DNC Digital.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy D from DNC Digital, back with another episode of DNC Radio. Today's guest is Pete Martin. Pete Martin has a new project called Summer Sleep, and we just heard a song from Summer Sleep, and it sounds awesome. We're going to talk to him about his band, about his musical background, and about other things that are going on in his life. It's been a while since I've done one of these interviews, and I'm happy to be back. I was doing my sponsorship partnership with Mission Pro Wrestling, and that was keeping me so busy, but in all of that, I've found a lot of new friends, including Pete Martin. So I'm going to bring him in. Pete, how you doing today, sir?
Great, D. How are you, brother?
Good, good. Thanks so much. Yeah, we met during this whole crazy tornado called Mission Pro Wrestling for the promotion for Hell Hath No Fury.
Yeah, worlds are absolutely colliding. The wrestling world, the music world, the digital world, and I'm glad it brought me to a good friend like you, man.
No, yeah, definitely. I appreciate you. And it was cool because it was a bunch of creative minds with their own creative outlets and what they can bring to the table. And we all brought it for Mission Pro Wrestling. So tell me about the show. Let's get started there. Tell me about the show. For those that don't know, let everybody know what Mission Pro Wrestling is and what their mission statement is.
Yeah, well, Mission Pro Wrestling is an all-female wrestling promotion owned by the NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa, and it's a promotion that they believe in the empowerment of women. It's just a really I don't know the best way to describe it. It's basically empowering women, advancing their cause through wrestling and bringing the art form forward. 20 years ago, we couldn't have said this. 20 years ago, women were wrestling, bra and panties matches and mud wrestling and jello and whatever television could throw at them, to shock people. And now it's become an art form. It's become a sport. It's become way more technical, than, we're experiencing kind of a second women's wrestling renaissance. I host their web show. I'm a musician by trade, but they were kind enough to bring me in kind of as an independent ally. It's an all-female run promotion. Everything from the announcers, the commentators, it's all female run. I don't collect a paycheck from them. I'm an ally to the promotion, and they were kind enough to let me do their web show.
Yeah, so it's something totally new in the wrestling world. But just like you said, you're a musician by trade. So we listened to this song by Summer Sleep. Now, Summer Sleep is under the category of Dream Pop. So can you explain to us what Dream Pop is?
Yeah, it's a little different. It's kind of a subgenre, obviously, of pop. It's a little more ethereal. It's a lot of reverb. Everything's drenched in reverb. What's up?
It's psychedelic stuff.
It really is. For me, I embraced it in the last year. I was a singer-songwriter before, and I was a touring funk musician before, and I did all kinds of crazy. I was an orchestrator for a half hip-hop, half folk band. So this was a departure. I was in the middle of a divorce that just broke my heart. It was really sad to see, the marriage end. But at the same time, it happened almost at the same time as quarantine. So my options were, live in those feelings or use this album as a way to heal. I recorded that entire album on my bathroom floor by myself. I played all the instruments on the album. I sang everything on the album, all the beats, everything. Everything in that is 100% me. My best friend Jared does the production. When I came to Texas, he followed me about 5 years later, and I call him my brother. I'm not even calling him a friend. He's my brother. My brother Jared Ottinger did the other. He's the second half of Summer Sleep, and he does the production work while I do the performance and the writing and the art end of it. I'm the right brain. He's the left brain, kind of.
Nice. You're talking about the brain, and it sounds like it's a small step into the field of, when it comes to your situation, it's a small step into the field of mental health. So how does one take those feelings that they can potentially, you know, hurt themselves or hurt others, and how do you find your way to turn it into art?
Okay, that's an awesome question. I'm glad you asked it because I was hoping you weren't going to do well. Where are you from? You know, like we can get all I like the deeper stuff.
That's not me, buddy. You
Yeah,
need to watch the other interviews.
chef's
I go.
kiss. I give you the chef's kiss. Um, no, this is good. The way I tie it to mental health, again, I use this as healing. Like for me, I went through the worst thing, one of the worst things a guy could go through is, his family, the separation of a family. Um, I encourage things like therapy. I mean, this album was essentially therapy. And the other part of this album, and it's good you kind of brought that up, is I'm a heavy, heavy, heavy believer in two things. One, getting therapy when you need it. So if there's people out there, you're having hard thoughts, you're going through a hard time, even if you just need a tuning, I recommend therapy. I mean, I'm not going to be Tom Cruise about this and not recommend it. But the other part of it is I'm a heavy believer in meditation, and there's a reason why a lot of these songs keep a steady pulse. There's a reason a lot of these songs, for example, "Please Stop Taking the Things I Love Away" has 4 minutes of instrumental. It's the whole second half of the song is a chance for you to zone out. It's a chance for you to look inside yourself and get right. If you're not right, get right. And it's this. I didn't want to do a rock album. Like I didn't want to be like a rocker, because that's just not where I'm at right now. It's a big part of healing. It's a big part about finding yourself. It's a big part of even reinvention. Folks that have kind of followed me through my career these last 23 years have said this is different than anything you've ever done. And there was a reason for that. And it's because being comfortable led me to this point. And the rule on this record for Jared and I was, if we're comfortable doing it, it doesn't go on the record. If it, I used to do, if you've listened to previous works I've done prior to Summer Sleep, I would do songs that were stories and long prose and intricate rhyme and all these things. And this time it's what I'm feeling. Like the psychological end of it in "Please Stop Taking the Things I Love Away." One of the psychological ends, I mean, if you listen to the song, it's kind of pleading to God and the universe, hey God, universe, can you please stop taking the things I love away from me? It could also be a letter to yourself. There's a lot of folks out there who through one prior trauma or pain or another, those things that maybe you might not have healed from your childhood are manifesting themselves in habits and decisions and actions later in life. And "Please Stop Taking the Things I Love Away" is almost a letter to yourself as well. Like, hey, self, if you're having trouble in relationships because, reason A, B, or C, it's like, hey, self, please stop taking the things I love away. So there was a big psychological depth to the entire album. Like, I don't do love songs. I've never done like, baby, baby, insert 10,000 songs with baby, baby in it. Like, I don't do those. I did those maybe 20 years ago. But since then, I've been doing more philosophical stuff. It's either usually it's God in the universe, good and evil. I mean, it's bigger hierarchical themes. But this album was absolutely a healing album. So psychologically, I think you're going to find them probably the most from, again, I'll say the song again, "Please Stop Taking the Things I Love Away."
I'm gonna try to word this question correctly because it's bouncing around my head, and I just want to make sure. I'm rambling in my head right now is what I'm doing. So,
Okay.
When somebody starts in the music industry, or not even the music industry, they just want to learn how to play an instrument.
Okay.
Hey, this is cool. That feeling of comfort, knowing that you've learned something, that there's progress. Can you tell me about that crazy irony that what do you credit to your growth as an artist to the point that you need to get yourself uncomfortable to put out some good shit?
Failure every time. It's not it made like the word that came to my mind was always failure, but it's not failure. Like I've made I've lost track of the number of albums I've made over the years because I've appeared on a lot of other people's work too. I mean, I've been doing this again since June 13th, 1997 was my first professional gig. It's the day after I graduated high school. I'll remember that date for the rest of my life. Friday the 13th, right? So for me it's, it's the Saturday the 13th. Um but for me it's I've appeared on time. I mean, there's recordings I'm still finding where I'm like, oh, I played on that? Like, what? Because there's a period where, I was traveling so much and I was in the studio for, I mean, if they could fog a mirror, I probably did someone's record. Like, so I found ways that didn't work. And music, especially, I mean, wrestling and music are kind of this thing. That's why I like them both so much, is because they're similar industries where people are full of hollow promises. Like people will tell you, "Oh, you're booked for this show and it's opening for this, major act," and they have, at the time there was no Facebook and Instagram, so you weren't measuring it in followers, you were measuring it in records sold, and it's like, oh, well, you're going to be opening for this band. They used to be huge back in the day, and they're still a big name. We're going to get 1,000 people at this show. And then, the day of the show, you find out that you got bumped for somebody else. And it's always, for me, the failure of just not getting to where my dreams wanted to take me push me another day. So it's like, they say, fall down and get back up, fall down and get back up. I've been falling down for 23 years. And I've been getting back up for 23 years. And I'm going to be 100 years old. If I'm still falling, I'm still getting back up.
With that being said, and I'm sorry to interrupt, do you just anticipate a fall, or are you at a point in your career where you're like, I'm gonna try not to fall?
No, I'm gonna make the record. Like, if I wanted to be the biggest star in the world and headline ACL and babes and fast cars and millions of dollars and jet skis on Town Lake and stuff, like I wouldn't be doing Dream Pop. Like I wouldn't be doing the tiniest niche that even you had to ask me what it was, and you're a pretty hip guy, and you're like, what the hell is Dream Pop? So like for me, I'm doing this for me because I needed to do it for me, and if I can help somebody, like that's worth more than 10,000 likes on a freaking app where people argue about cats and politics. Like,
okay, well, the last statement aside, when you talk about doing it for me and helping other people, that sounds like somebody that I can look up to, that I can aspire to be. And I feel like people in the music industry are easy people to put in that category. Why does one need to sacrifice his or herself and their arts to now do music that is not theirs? Not that it's not theirs. They're probably writing it, or they're singing it, obviously. But why do you feel the singer-songwriter, yeah, hell yeah, if you want me to sing that for, 10 grand a spin, I'll sign the contract right now. Why does it come to that you can't just stay yourself? There's a cool, Fade to Black was a documentary about the Black Album by Jay-Z. Mm-hmm. And, there was a rapper, an unknown rapper in this roster sitting in the studio. He goes, I don't want to talk about guns and knives and gangs. I want to talk about some real shit, but that's not selling right now. So as a person in the music industry, as a musician, singer-songwriter, you're talking about that you wouldn't be doing Dream Pop right now if you wanted to be the biggest star. Why do you have to not do what you want to be the biggest star?
These people, what do you mean people not do what you... For example, if I want to be the biggest star in the world, at this point I wouldn't even know what the hell I'd have to do because the world has changed so much. So let me put it in context of when I started. When I first started, I came from a town in Pennsylvania that was like an hour. If I would have driven an hour and a half west, Fuel and Live were the two big '90s bands that came out of that area. And I tell people, if I was the trendy guy back then, I would, I had the long hair and everything, but would I sing like Eddie Vedder? All through the record, like a low, deep, bloated voice. Like I have a pretty high voice. Like I have a shrilly kind of. I do. I know what I am. And so like I know that if I sound like a screaming rocker, it's gonna sound like a optometrist dad at karaoke. So it's like I had to be self-aware and be like, I don't have that growly monster voice that's selling right now. And I wasn't a Pearl Jam fan at all in the '90s. And Brother Jared, he's gonna fucking kill me on that one because he was the biggest Pearl Jam fan in the '90s. But it's like, for me to sell a lot of records, I would have to do like straight up dance pop, or I would have to produce beats for a mumble rapper. Like mumble rap is massive right now. Like there's certain kinds of dance pop. I can write the beats, but it's like I don't feel fulfilled doing that. Like I want to say, like for me, I believe I use music as a means of emotional, and I don't want to say intimate connection because that's reserved for my lady, but like mental, spiritual, physical, intimate connection. Like, but you want it somehow on a different layer, spiritually and emotionally, and hopefully mentally, on a level of intimacy not as deep as your loved ones, connect with your audience. And you can't do that with shallow dance pop. Like you just can't. No. I can sing "Baby, Baby, Baby" and I can write just as good a beat as anybody. I mean, you can hear it when the theme I wrote for Jasmine Allure. I mean, that's, I wanted to give her a very fitting theme because we have believe it or not, we have a kind of similar story growing up. So I was like, you know what? She's a new wrestler. I want to give her a head start, So I wrote like a dance pop number, but there's depth to it. And in fact, I in my own version of the song, that is not her version of the song, in my version of the song, I added guitar and I added vocals for depth. And that's "The Wolves in My Dream," which is another Summer Sleep song. So we can, we can fight where we need, like Summer Sleep can fight where Summer Sleep needs to fight. Because Summer Sleep does want to do well. Like I want this band to be the biggest band in the world. In my mind, there's a theater in do you come to Austin a lot?
I do not. Okay. I would love.
And when you come, we will absolutely love to have you.
Of course.
There's a theater called the Paramount Theater, and from the time I moved to Austin, I was ass broke when I came here. And I pass by that theater all the time. And for the last 12 years, I've been passing by that theater. And I say a prayer every time I pass that theater. And I visualize it for the last God knows how many years, every night before I go to sleep. It says, "Summer Sleep sold out." The band name has changed a few times, obviously. But I view myself saying, I'm going to sell out this damn theater. And I'm going to feel good doing it. I'm going to feel like I finally... That's my manifestation of a very long time. And, I mean, that's out of the failure. That's going to be one of my big wins. It's not going to be the big win because, where do you go from there? But it's going to be one of my big wins.
I want to go back real quick. You mentioned that you're a big believer in meditation. So
yes.
I did that a few times, and it was pretty wild for me. I can tell you anything. It felt like, geez, I can't even explain it. It was like I heard everything. I heard everything, and I felt everything. I was just completely still. I was so relaxed. Me, if I close my eyes, I can go to sleep like this. But it wasn't,
Same.
It wasn't the case when I did that. So meditation has been around for years, centuries. I'm not sure exactly about the history, but in today's world, so many distractions. And first, top of the list is TV, internet, phones. If one hasn't ever meditated before, what are the rewards of meditation, and how does one start with all these crazy distractions around you?
It's your reset button. I mean, the biggest way I've always there's a few readings that I've loved, and then there was a contemporary comedian who just boiled it down to the point where I was like sledgehammer to the head. Oh my God, I get this. And the comedian is Pete Holmes.
Oh, I love Pete Holmes.
Yeah, yeah. He did an episode of Livewire, and he has also that's a short version of a long speech he did at Google, and he's brilliant. And so for me, though, here's the way I look at it, and I'll insert a few Pete Holmes isms and Ram Dass isms as well. One is it's my reset button. Every day, I take 20 minutes. That's it. That's all you. I mean, if you don't have 20, you have 10. If you don't have 10, you have 5. You know, if you don't have 5, you have 3, and if you don't have 3, you have more damn problems than you know. You know. So what I do is feet away from where I record. I'm pointing at my bathroom floor. Feet away from where I recorded the Summer Sleep album, I have this little bathroom closet. I mean, it's my walk-in closet, and I would just walk in there, and I would completely just. There's no lights coming in. There's no screens in there, because your phone screen, your everything screen. I mean, for me, that it's the cause of a lot of, I don't know, for anxiety. It takes me off of my level. But I'm a total screen addict at the same time. I'd be a hypocrite if I said, "Oh, no screens in my house." Bull crap. I had 4 on me at the exact same time today: a phone, a laptop, an iPad, and the TV. So I'd be a hypocrite, and I'm not going to do that to anyone who might get some mileage out of this. But for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I'll just sit in the floor of a pitch black closet, no light coming in, and I just close my eyes in silence. And there's a few methods for someone who's just starting. I do just to get your mind in the right place. Breathe in one nostril for 4. Again, breathe out the other nostril for 4. You're breathing out both of them, but fucking tell yourself.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
You know,
have you?
No, but the gist of it is tell yourself, listener, that you're in one, in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, out for 4. And for me, that's one of them. And if my mind's just racing because maybe I drank a Monster a couple hours earlier or something, maybe, you know, people are yelling at me for, you know, God, any number of reasons they tend to yell at me for, to quiet my mind. God, I can't remember the guy's name. It's not Ram Dass, but it's Alan Watts, Tim Watts, whichever one's not the drummer of the Rolling Stones. The Watts that's not the drummer of the Stones. I think it's Alan Watts. Yeah, you know, just listen to what's around you, but don't assign what is making that sound. If you're sitting in the forest and you hear the cicadas and you hear the birds chirping and you hear trees rustling, don't assign sounds. Just hear the chirp, hear the rustle, hear the, you know, whatever's. Just hear it, but don't assign things in your brain. Or, you know, if you're sitting in the closet and the air conditioner kicks on, or kids are screaming downstairs or whatever, assign the sound, or don't assign the sound, just hear it. And then, I mean, what I usually do is I'll then kind of let my eyes take me to where they're taking me. And sometimes it looks like the thing from Doctor Who, you know, your mind's just swirling. Or, you know, you focus on a point that's just so far away. Sometimes you'll see faces. Sometimes you'll see hundreds of different things. But ultimately, it's about finding that center. And at the end of it, I mean, you'll find what you need to find. And sometimes it's songs, you know, that I'm writing. Or sometimes it's learning just to let things go, you know. But at the end of it, you know, when you come out of the room, you're gonna, you know, the light hits you, and you're like, it feels like you've been gone 100 years, but you're only out that 20. That's it. And I mean,
so you mentioned that of being a form of therapy, and you know, at the top of the hour, you talked about, you know, music being a form of therapy, and a lot of artists, you know, do tell their own story through their music, but At the same time, as a public figure, they feel like they are not obligated to tell us their lives, like in interviews or TV shows, tabloids and stuff. What is that fine line? You know, an artist is so open, an open book. I'll tell you about my dad that left me. I'll tell you about my alcoholic mother, but do not ask me in public. What is the difference in those venues that one can be comfortable or not?
I mean, it depends on the person because I mean, I've never. I mean, I have friends that have done that are doing huge things right now. I have two on wrestling television right now. And it's and but I've never reached that level of being any kind of celebrity where people actually give a shit about my personal life. So for me, like I'm still an open book. Like D, I mean, you and I are a lot alike, and I could tell you about growing up completely impoverished in Reading, Pennsylvania, in a house that didn't have heat. I can tell you, I mean, I talked about it a little bit yesterday on the web show about freezing during a football game. But what I didn't say on that web show is I was convinced I was freezing to death. I thought that was it. I mean, shivering to death in a house that didn't have heat at a negative 7 degrees outside. So. I mean, I could tell you 100 stories, and when you reach a certain level, I think, and this is based on nothing, but I've had friends that do TV now. I've had friends that have done TV, they've done movies, they've done, some of the biggest albums in the world, and I think it's because if you let people in, there is an element of people that try to use information about you as a means to manipulate you.
Got it. I totally understand. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine people being used, or someone will take a nugget of information about you, force their way into your circle, and manipulate you. And I mean, that's not how I live my life, but I know a lot of friends that are guarded, and I think it could also be because people are constantly asking them for stuff. Like I've had friends that have made albums and they're living their dreams. They're on, late night television, in the before time when late night television actually had studios and audiences and stuff.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. Watching 8 months ago.
Remember people?
But yeah, but I've even said, like, there are some people that have made it and I've never asked them for a thing. Like, I have friends that have hit the biggest of the big time. I have friends that are in the big time now. And I would love if one of them said on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, hey, Pete put out an album. It's a pretty decent album. If you like it, give it a listen. Even for that. But no one's ever done anything like that for me. Like, no one's ever said, hey, check out Pete's album. He's kicking ass. It's an artist you might never heard of. He's been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. And I've had friends in the record industry. There's one friend I was a bass player for her for years, and she's gone on to make records. She's in movies. She was on television. She's still out there making records. I've put out at least 4 solo albums since then, and she's never once said, "Hey friends, check out Pete." But any pretentious whatever that farts into a microphone, they're all of a sudden their stuff gets blasted. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I wasn't that good. Maybe I'm not that good a friend. Maybe my years of service meant nothing. Helping and playing for free or playing for nothing in the bars. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds bitter at first, but you're like, you've given to someone. It would be nice just to even get a tweet back.
Yeah, of course.
But I operate the same way. I'm I believe in putting people over as a community. Like, I really do. I've put over a lot of people. Priscilla Ahn, I got her first paying show. And she went on to go do Blue Note Records and a lot of amazing things. It wasn't a big show. It was, Alexander's in New Jerusalem, Pennsylvania. I gave her, I think we made $30 that show. my cut was 10 and she was the opener and I gave her that $10. You know, I mean, we're not talking, six-figure contract. We're talking like I gave her $10 because she drove out that way. It was her first show and I didn't want her to leave empty-handed. Big freaking whoop. Does she owe me the world? No. You know, she's an example of it would have been nice if she would have tweeted something out. Said, hey, here's Summer Sleep. Here's his iTunes. Give it a listen. If you don't like it, who cares? You know, we've already moved on to the next thing that the president said. You know, like it's like,
Yeah.
just somebody, throw me a tweet. There's a lot of places I've done media for. I've been on everyone's album. I've been on everyone's friggin' album. And I've written songs for other people, and it would be like, hey, it'd be nice to blast me out a tweet, It just doesn't.
Yeah. So you talk about working on everybody's album, and you were in a funk band and hip
What?
hop, which is what I want to hear. You got to send me whatever you did in hip hop folk because that sounds nuts. And now you got Summer
Those
Sleep
nights, yeah,
with Dream Pop.
yeah.
So when you kind of it's like a pinball machine and you're going through all these genres. Are you doing this to educate yourself in these genres, or is it because of openings and jobs or something like
It started out as opening in jobs because my dream was to be a musician. Like my dream's not to do my day job, and I don't want to talk about my day job on here. Like my dream is to do it in music. That's my purpose. Like I'm happiest when I'm on stage. I'm happiest when the adrenaline hits. Um, it's like when I started, I was a trombone player in high school, marching band geek with a trombone and a mouthful of braces. And I played in a ska band because it was the 90s, ska was popular and it has horns. But that trend died. And then it was like I went to college and became a folk singer because I had a guitar, and apparently, if you're by yourself and you have a guitar, you're a folk singer.
that? Did you have a beard? Because that goes with it too.
What's up?
Did you
No,
have?
I didn't start growing a beard till like recently. Like before, I've always had stubble because I'm Greek. We have the Greek stubble. But if it gets past like an inch, I'm like I got to shave it. It's too itchy. Um, but I was a folk singer and I was doing comedy uh, and then I learned I was kind of playing bass, and then when I came back to the Philadelphia area, Eastern Pennsylvania, which all of Eastern PA calls itself the Philadelphia area, um, it was like the only job I could get was in a folk band with these two really young, pretty ladies, and so I was like, you need a bass player? Because that's the job that's open. I'm going to be your bass player. How good are you at bass? No more questions. I'm your bass player. And I had to kind of learn on the job, and I always had to stay kind of a couple weeks ahead of them. But I learned so much. I learned how to sing, and I learned how to harmonize through them because I was a hot mess before that. During the folk singer years, I met someone that taught me songwriting, Pittsburgh Rob Arment. He's a wonderful man, and he's kind of in the same boat I am, where it's like he's done so much independent work, and I wish people would give Rob Arment a listen. I'll put him right now. His band was called Poke, and man, that guy, God, he's fantastic. He's one of the best songwriters I ever met. And outside of Pittsburgh, I don't know a lot of folks that know him, know of his work. So coming back, I was playing for Jolene Windmiller, who's now a big folk singer in Reading, Pennsylvania, and she's wonderful. But then I was like, the folk thing was kind of, the gigs were kind of drying up, and there was a funk band that I played trombone, and I was like, well, you know what? I play trombone. I got to relearn how to play trombone, but that's where the work is. And I joined the New Kings of Rhythm, and I'm playing 4 nights a week, in Philly and Delaware and Maryland, and just that whole Eastern whatever. And this is a band that taught me improvisation. So again, you're seeing a trend. You're seeing invention out of necessity, and you're seeing learning. And then, just New Kings, I kind of, my time there ended, and I met Priscilla Ahn. I was her bass player. She called me the day of a show and said, hey, I need a bass player. And then she ended up getting a big deal with Blue Note Records. But I learned a lot from her. um, and she got a big deal. So it was like I'm seeing friends launching and doing these amazing things. And then when Priscilla went off to Hollywood and made a whole ton of money and living a good life, I was like, well, what the hell do I do next? And then I went to like another funk band, and I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's not there. And emotionally, I was kind of sad because I'm like, okay, years are going by and no one's interested in the stuff I'm writing. They only love what other people are doing.
That's something I actually wanted to ask you. When you're in a band, is it tough to have a collaborative process? With so many different minds, maybe egos. Like we're gonna do this. Like, hey, I had this idea. No, we're gonna do this.
It depends on the band. Like when you go in, there's there's kind of three band models, at least two that I can think of. There's probably more that I'm gonna spit out. One is like there's the guy that's written all the songs and he's pulling people together and saying, this is what I want on the drums, this is what I want on the bass, this is what I want for the guitar, keys, whatever. And thus the band forms. I'll call that one the Dave Matthews Band model, or the Steve Miller Band, or it's the Eric Clapton. It's the guy in front. He's written all the songs. He's
okay. I want names for all these models of bands.
Okay, I'll do that. And then there's the band that they kind of form. They collaborate. It's all for one for all. Jimmy, give me a beat, and then Bobby, give me a bass line, and everyone just kind of whippy, and they all come together and they write. I don't know how many bands came together. Like I'll call it like Fish, the Grateful Dead, Fish. Where it's like it's coming out of guys jamming and collaborating, and that one's a harder one to do because if you have one piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit, you have a long freaking afternoon and you have to explain to those guys why you don't want to play with them anymore. It's like because you're like, okay, well, I'm clearly not a fit for this band because they're all doing, speed metal and I'm doing dance pop, and it doesn't, or I'm a country guitarist and these guys are doing like Norwegian speed metal. It's not going to work. So for me, it was always, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do it's like a hitman. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do the job, and I'm going to get out.
And I'm going to leave.
And they'll leave, or like a hitman or a prostitute. Take your pick. I don't know. But for me, whenever I pitch songs to people, maybe I lacked confidence. I'm going to be open. Maybe I lacked confidence. But or maybe the songs are just shit. But when I would pitch stuff to people, it didn't work. Like when I love those nights. Those nights was like one of my favorite bands I've ever been in, where it was like they had two clear songwriters, sometimes a third, and they were putting together bangers, and my job was like orchestrate. And I think we were one of the best bands in San Marcos. We had done so many things. I got access to people and places I would never have by myself. It was a wonderful experience, and I think of those guys like brothers, and I think of them like family. But I never had an opportunity to write for them, and the stuff that I wrote didn't quite fit them, and I didn't really get as many chances to pitch songs to them as I wanted. I would get like 30 seconds to pitch a song, and it's like, well, tough shit, it's not going to work. So, and I didn't just want to be an orchestrator. I was the best orchestrator they could have, but I didn't want to be the orchestrator. I want to be a writer. So that, led me to kind of come on my own for a little bit, find my place in the wilderness. I had to go back into the wilderness, and that's where Summer Sleep came from. I'm the writer for Summer Sleep. If Summer Sleep fails, there's only one guy in the band. It's me. Jared's my, producer, but, I love him. He's a family. But
there's a pro and con in that because it's almost like, okay, I'm going to use the example that Brody Lee was on Jericho's podcast.
Okay.
And they were talking about the lack of the scripts. And Brody Lee's like, hey, that's cool, but then there's nobody to blame. You can go out there, no script, you have freedom, but now we're seeing if it's your fault or not that you didn't work in this other place,
I would take that arrangement 10 out of 10 times. If somebody wrote a song for me and said, okay, Pete, we're going to sing Blue-Eyed Baby. I'm just making up like a tacky song, like Blue-Eyed Baby. I don't know if that's a real song or not, right? Like, Pete, you're gonna sing that, and at the climax of the song, you're always gonna have a single tear come down your face. You know, like I shoot me, like shoot me. Like I wouldn't make it 2 weeks. But if it's like Pete, okay, there's entrance music for like I'll use like Vert Vixen as an example because I think she's one of the futures of wrestling. Like, okay, Vert Vixen, I'm gonna write a song for you. I want you to be the biggest badass you can be. It's gonna come from me. It's gonna come from how I see Vert, and it's gonna be I'm gonna write this like big, flashy, electric song that also has a little bit of heart to it. Because Vert, you know, when she turns it on, she's a character. She's a great heel. She's a great, like Vert's awesome. And then, when she gets into the ring, she explodes. But at the same time, she also has a lot of heart. So I'm like, that's how I'm gonna do it. And if it sucks, then I lose the job. And she goes with a different theme song. But but the onus, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no one to blame but myself.
When you talk about writing songs for wrestlers, because you wrote for Jasmine Allure, you said, right?
And a couple others. I did a vignette. I did one for Insane. He's a luchador out of Austin. He's amazing. For guys, Insane is one of my like sleeper picks that I wish people would watch more. I did a vignette for him because like the theme song didn't quite work for what he was trying to do, but he makes a lot of cool videos. So for Insane, I of all things, I did a speed metal one for Insane.
Nice.
So
when you write those songs, being a lifelong wrestling fan, as we both already know each other.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to see if you wrote those songs from a different perspective, not that of a musician. Because if a musician comes in to the wrestling world blind, what he or she can present or submit for a wrestler to use as their theme song might not be it. So you having that wrestling knowledge, was it an easy approach to go to a wrestler and submit some music? Also, was it a different approach because now you're kind of not doing it just for music, but you're also doing it as a presentation to a character, to wrestling, to a crowd, to get them pumped up?
It's when I do it for wrestling, it ceases to be about for me it becomes a labor of love, because I'm like, I write for people I know. Like
Yeah.
when I wrote for Insane, I know Insane's secret identity. I know who's under the mask. Like, he's a friend. So I'm like, I'm gonna put my best work into it because that man is a friend.
Yeah.
And when I wrote one for Jasmine Allure, I didn't even meet her at the time. She had written on Facebook something that resonated with me. She's a child of immigrants. I'm a child of immigrants. Both my parents off the boat. There was, I have some other family members, God rest their souls, that when they came to this country, they weren't exactly legal. And it was around the time that a certain administration was putting children in cages and stuff. And one of the statements was like, in another situation, that could have been me. And I'm thinking to myself, holy hell, in 30 years, if I was born, 30 years later, I could have been one of those children in the cage, of the way
Right.
I had family that came up through, we came from Greece, but we immigrated through South America. So it was like...
What country?
Panama,
okay.
Central America. I'll say Central America, but yeah. So I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I could have been one of those children in the cages. Easily could have been, depending on, a couple late uncles with a couple checkpoints that made a mistake, and I could have been one of those children in the cages. So that resonated with me, and I'm like, I want to do something for this person. Like, and I was like, let me try the entry music, because I had seen her first match, and I was like, she's charismatic. I think that there's something here. I inadvertently had met Taylor Swift when she was a child. Priscilla Ann, Ricky Starks. Like, I get that vibe. When I think someone's going to be a star, I get this weird, like, vibe. And I can't describe it, but I'm like, that person's going to be something. Just, keep an eye, because their name's going to be in lights. And it was like, for hers, I was like, I have to do something. So I was like, what would someone who is going to be a star have? And it was like, big, bass drop. When you hear the listeners, when you hear the Wolves in My Dreams, you're going to hear like an intro and then a bass drop and then, a big hit. It's like the intro, she's coming, the bass drop, and boom, she's out of the curtain. I was like, I want the world to know this girl's going to be a star. And there's certain keyboard things and runs, and there's all kinds of the swirling sounds. And I'm like, because this person is going to be in lights. What would this is not someone coming out of a little black curtain at AAPW. What's it going to look like when they're coming out of a freaking stadium? And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to say, Jasmine, this is what I think you're going to do. Like, I think this is going to be you coming out of a curtain in a very large stadium, big freaking swirling lights, a lot of people screaming. I want you to rise above this. And that's how I came up with that. So when I do the wrestling theme, it's not, this person's kind of, and I did one for, there's a bunch of them I've done that haven't seen the light of day yet. But it's not like, you're going to come through the curtain, so I'm going to give you a little beat, and a little intro, and a swing on the keyboards. It's like, I want them to feel how you're going to feel. I want the world to see you how I see you.
Nice.
Like Insane's a badass, and I want people to see how badass Insane is. The guy gets bloody in his matches. I want to see people say, Insane will effing kill you, blood in this match. Jasmine, she's going to be a big star. I'll use Vert Vixen as an example. I think Vert will do extremely well. I think she's going to have some stardom as well. So let's do something big for Vert. And these are labors of love. I've collected no money from these people. Because this is
like you said, labors of love, and you personally know them. And hey, so earlier in the interview, you talked about moving to Austin with no money in your pocket. Can you talk about the decision to move all the way from Philly to Austin?
Yeah, and actually, it's one worse. The town's called Reading, Pennsylvania. Forbes magazine called it the most impoverished city in America. When I grew up, the house I grew up in like 2005, sold for $8,000. Not 80,
wow.
8. The price of a used Honda Civic with an engine swapped and 200,000 miles on it. That was the price of the home I grew up in. The average salary in Reading, Pennsylvania is like $18,000 a year. It's on the 18,000, 18,000. It's primarily like a drug route from Philly to Washington D.C. to Baltimore, New York City. Like, it's just hell. It was hell on earth growing up. I would never. I hated. I had a really messed up childhood, which explains why I'm on this show now. No, just kidding.
If that explains why you're on the show, imagine what the host went through.
Well, it gives you stories that you can run with. Like, we could do a whole day on growing up in Reading, but so I'm like, I'm on your show because I can give you 100 stories on it. So, there's parts of Pennsylvania where the road sign should say nowhere starts here. And I was striking out, I was dead ending, and my first wife at the time, I said to her, like, the music thing is done. Priscilla's off, she's become a big star. Other friends have gone off, they've done really big things. What do I do now? The funk gigs are drying up. The only thing left to do is cover bands, which, again, shoot me, and the job market is hell on earth. I was, living in my
with all due respect, they are called tribute bands.
Well, no, that's only if they're in one, if they do one band, like, the Van Halen tribute band. But cover bands, it's like whatever they do. They do like, they're very popular in Northeast. It's like they just do top 40 all night, and they'll do a 20-minute of Sublime's "What I Got" just to make the dude bros dance with 2 beers.
Little Santeria.
Exactly. So, and they still do that to this day. But to me, that's like the lowest start for them. So I said to my first wife, I'm tired of living in your mom's basement. I feel like a loser. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't get ahead. And what are our options? New York, LA, Nashville, or Austin? Well, New York, too expensive. LA, way too expensive. I'm not country or blonde enough for Nashville, so let's give Austin a try. And we didn't know anybody here. It was the recession of 2008, and we quit our
Oh, you
jobs.
moved in 2008. I also moved here in 2008.
Yeah, and I said, let's quit our jobs. Let's sell everything we have, and we came here, and through happenstance, you're gonna love this story. I'm gonna give you a quick short story. Through happenstance, there was a band. I was just like looking through Craigslist to find bands to play for,
Okay.
and one I found was a salsa band, and I ended up actually, I made more in 4 shows with the salsa band than I did in my first 5 years of music. So, I mean, the salsa band paid well. It wasn't going to be a forever thing, but it was
What did
enough
you
to
play in the salsa band?
trombone.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and they were like, "Your Spanish is really bad. Just shave to a goatee and wear sunglasses and don't talk to anyone." Those are my specific instructions.
Do you remember what was one of your favorite songs to play?
I don't. One was Píntame. I remember that because I
Oh,
remember the name.
Pítame. Pítame is a good one.
Píntame. And then the one that's like Suavemente, like that one.
Oh, those are actually the same singer did
Okay.
both of those songs.
Apparently, I'm that guy's biggest fan because they're like those are like the two bangers that I remember. And um and then I played those. I played those shows. They were a blast. I was as greener than a chili plant, greener than a pepper plant. But I was like, I'll do whatever the hell it takes to get to the next town to get money. Well, we we get back to Austin, and I find this band on like MySpace. This is again 0809, and I was like, I want to give this band a try. And they lived in this house, like it was kind of like a band frat house kind of thing, where the whole band just lived together with their manager and his girlfriend. I'm talking to the girlfriend, and she's like, "Wait a minute, you're from this town?" I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Do you know so and so, the keyboard player?" And I was like, "Yeah, he was my keyboard player in the second funk band I was in." She's like, "Yeah, that's my ex boyfriend."
Holy
And I was like,
crap!
"Huh?"
I was
So
like, holy crap!
right, so 1,600 miles away, in a town of 1 million people between Austin, Round Rock, and San Marcos, like a region, and if you add San Antonio, add another million on top of that, a metro area of like 2 million plus people. I find the one woman who dated the keyboard player from 1,600 miles away in a band in the most shitty, impoverished city in America, and it was the craziest experience of my life.
That's cool. So I mean, one thing I do love to talk about when it comes to cities and travel and where people are from is food. So
All
I
right.
have three questions for you.
Holy.
Did you ever like? I mean, you grew up in around the Philly area in Reading,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So, where was your favorite spot to grab a cheesesteak, if you did?
Half a block away from me, it was this place called Rosie's. It was this tiny, it was a corner store, man. It was this Italian guy and his daughter. They named it after the mother who passed away. That's where, this thing was not bigger than 8 feet sideways, maybe 12 feet going, 10 to 12 feet
It
going
sounds
back.
like a legendary place already.
It was a little flat top, it was just a man in his flat top. Um, if you asked for like extra cheese or extra whatever, the old man would grumble at you. Lift up the on the flat top. He would do to steam it. He would steam around it and put the like a pot lid on it. So
Yeah.
the meat cooks around the meat and the onions and stuff. And he would throw more cheese in there and just grumble at me. But I was a kid, so he couldn't be mad. He's just surly old Italian guy, and um, I drank my Mountain Dew Big Slams because Big Slam was at the time.
You see, like the corner store, that already brings tons of memories. Those three words bring tons of memories to me.
Corner store,
You know,
baby.
no, the corner store. How about Austin? Did you like the food in Austin when you moved out there?
There were things I liked and things I didn't like. Italian food in Austin was an absolute train wreck. Home sliced pizza is the best. I love home sliced pizza. I could eat that every day. and I wish I was endorsed by Home Slice. But um, there was. I'm trying to think of like. See, the weird thing is, like Texas doesn't do hard rolls. Everything's on a soft roll. Like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So um, food in Austin was different because there was no Texas barbecue in Pennsylvania. So brisket was a brand new discovery. I had to get used to the spiciness of food because in Pennsylvania everything is bland fried meat. It's some form of fried meat,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's just carbo, carbo, carbo. And here I wasn't used to just how spicy things are. Now I am. It's been, but um, and then the other weird thing was I had family in California, I had family in Arizona, and Mexican food, Southwestern food, and Tex-Mex are three completely different things. But in Pennsylvania, everything is just called Mexican food. It's like one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So for me, I expected like from the California side of the family in Texas, I expected shredded meat, and you wouldn't find that anywhere. Everything's ground beef because it's Tex-Mex. The way it's presented, where Tex-Mex has like the sauces are just kind of beautifully slumpified on the plate, and and burritos are kind of non-existent. That's more like a California thing. So getting the nuances of Texas, Tex-Mex, interior Mexican food, California, I don't know what there's a term for it, and just general Southwestern. All of them, just getting used to all that was a learning curve that took years.
Growing up in a melting pot of the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, I grew up learning a lot of different cultures and trying their food. That's one thing I loved. I loved that because there was so many different things I can learn.
Mm-hmm.
I remember eating with an Indian family. I was just like, I don't want to, tell me the way you guys eat. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. So we did the whole, the table like 10 inches off the floor with the pillows,
Mm-hmm.
grabbing everything with your hands.
Yay.
But Greek food is something authentic Greek food is something I don't think I've ever tasted. So
It doesn't exist in Texas.
No, it doesn't. No.
It doesn't exist.
But what would
I've
be
tried.
the one Greek dish that you would have me try if I ever went to a family get together?
Pastizio. Not even close. Pastizio. It's like Greek lasagna. It's basically
Okay.
like, imagine like instead of like red marinara Alfredo white, imagine a white lasagna.
Okay.
So it's like a layer of noodles. It's a layer of like the big fat pasta, layer of ground beef. I forget what the hell the name of the sauce is. It's a layer of this beautiful cheesy delicious sauce, and then more cheese on top. So it's basically like I if I was like describing it to just a non-foodie, I would say it's like a white lasagna. But it is my favorite damn dish in the world. I haven't had it in a long time because the aunt that used to make it just godly. Just she passed away. I haven't seen my mother in a good long time, and um, um, I might try to seek out another Greek place here, but that's what I would do. I didn't have my first Indian food until I hit Austin. Indian, Thai, like Vietnamese, like the
Right.
Northeast. The Northeast, you would think, is this melting pot of food, but a lot of it didn't get there and permeate the suburbs and spill out to Philadelphia, and especially Pittsburgh, which is a little more country. It didn't. It hasn't permeated them until only like a few years ago. The and one of the other things I wanted to say was when you come to Austin, my girlfriend is from Bangladesh, so we will hook you up with Indian food, brother.
Hey, that's
like we
great.
will hook you up with the homemade good. So yeah.
That sounds great. Hey, what's one thing that you wish that kid would have known about the music business or about performing that night in June 13th?
June 13th, 19. What the hell would I tell a young Pete Martin before he became Pete Martin, and especially before he became Summer Sleep?
Yeah.
Um, don't waste your time if the band is just going to sit on the couch and smoke pot all day. Because
Fair.
there's a lot of, I mean, I'm straight edge. I've been straight edge for a long time. There's bands where you're like, we have all the potential in the world. Why are you guys just sitting around getting stoned? Like, why are we not promoting? I'm going to do a shout out to Brian Cervantes because he's teaching me about promoting. I would say meet up with Brian Cervantes and have him teach you about promoting. But the other, because he's a brilliant promoter. But the other thing I would tell him is like, if you're watching a band that used to open up for you now headline ACL. I'm watching bands that opened up for my old bands play ACL. I'm watching them on the cover of the Austin Chronicle. I'm watching beer commercials with a band that has opened up for me a dozen times, and I'm still here. They've passed. I would tell them, stay hungry, stay competitive, don't get complacent, don't put your faith in others. Keep fighting, keep getting back up. This is not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty. The friends that you've made, they love you, but they're not going to have your career interests in mind. If you want to rule the world, if you want to win, you want to do something big, go out and win. Go out, do something big. And another thing I would tell that little son of a bitch named Pete is like, believe in yourself a whole lot earlier than you believed in yourself. That's what the Wolves in My Dreams, the song The Wolves in My Dreams is about. And the opening line is, I wish that you believed in me the way that I believe in me. You know, it's like it's not a letter to me. Sometimes it is. It's a letter. It's a letter to everybody. It's a letter to the listener. It's a letter to the person who, I've been out here for 25 years. If this is the first time you've heard my music, I wish you believed in me the way that I believe in me. Because I sound like old, jaded, bitter asshole, but maybe I am. but at the end of the day, like, you know, I've done a lot of amazing things. I've played with a lot of amazing people. Um, I got to live some of my dreams. I used to have a Weezer poster on my wall, and 20 years later, 15 years later, I'm playing with Weezer.
Yeah, that's actually the next question. Out of everybody that you've opened for, who's been the most supportive?
Oh, I didn't open for Weezer. I did Beverly Hills and Island in the Sun and a couple others with them.
With them.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's
October,
amazing.
October something or another, 2008 at the Frank Irwin Center. It was a one night gig, but it was a dream. I mean, and it was my first wife had heard about it. She had overheard someone talking, saying they were crowdsourcing horn players. She got their info. Like, she was at the supermarket, and the lady in front of her was talking about it or something. And she got that girl's info and said, Pete, you need to call this woman, like, now. So I called that lady, and she got me the gig.
And how were they? How were the guys?
I only had time with Brian Bell, the guitar player. He was cool. He was great. The other ones I met, like, it was like you learn from him and the road manager, and then you go on stage, and that is the first time seeing the rest of the band. Brian Bell was incredibly gracious, and he taught me the solo to Beverly Hills so I could shred the solo on Beverly Hills.
You did oh, sweet, bro. That is so dope.
I'll send you the video.
Please, yes, please send me the video. Hey, so I was able to learn a lot about new music because I'm gonna give some credit to Conan O'Brien because I feel like he has a certain taste in music. No, yeah, he has a certain taste in music that he says I need these guys on the show because I feel like he loves giving a platform to new people. So when I say like Father John Misty, Langhorne Slim and the Law, the Everett Brothers, these are songs that I've learned, bands and songs that I've learned because I was such a big fan of Conan O'Brien. Is there any other celebrity that comes to mind that can surprise somebody when you're like, wow, they actually support these guys, or they're fans of that band, or they really like this kind of music?
Well, I wanted to add one more thing to the previous question. What comes to mind, there's two that I opened for that I really loved. One was Carolyn Wonderland, the blues legend. Carolyn Wonderland. I opened for her in Houston. I did not know what to expect, and she was one of the nicest people I ever met. I left there like, and her husband was on SNL, and I totally like fangirled around him the whole night. The other was Shaky Graves. Opened up for Shaky Graves, and like 2 weeks later, he hit real big, and he started doing TV and won a ton of awards. Um, oh, and then opening for when I did a solo gig, I opened for James McMurtry, which was Texas country or to folk, songwriter, and Bruce Robeson and Kelly Willis. So those were some big ones that I opened for that I just freaking loved. Celebrities that scout musicians. I gotta see. First one I'll do, because there's a few. One is I'm gonna shout out Ricky Starks, because when I first put out my album, he retweeted my tune. He was like, "Dude, this is the bop," and he put out my song, and I was like,
That's
Ricky
awesome.
Starks. Yeah, so Ricky Starks, absolutely, because he is for this album, he is the only celebrity that has retweeted any of my musical work. Is Ricky Starks. So I will put Ricky Starks over all day. Other ones where I discover music from them. In 2003, it would have been Zach Braff. Like the dude was, he was like, it was funny because I had met the actor that played the cop in Garden State. He's a friend of mine's husband, and I had said to him, Zach Braff is kind of like the male Oprah, where he holds up a CD and all of a sudden that CD goes platinum. Like when Oprah holds up a book, that book goes, bestseller. And they kind of got offended at that. And I was like, how do you get offended at that? I just told your friend, he puts people over, but I don't know if like other celebrities where I'm like Conan was the big one, because that's how I discovered Elliott Smith. That's how I discovered,
Oh yeah, Elliott Smith.
And I've had friends be on the show, and I've had bands that are complete assholes that I know backstage be on the show as well. There was one band, I'm not going to put them on blast, but they won a ton of awards in Austin. And we opened for them, and I was backstage. I said, "Hey man, congrats on your awards." And the guy just looked at me square in the eyes and said, "Awards don't equal money, bro." And he shoulder, like, you got that thing in like high school bullies do.
Yeah.
And they walk past you and they bump your shoulder. And I was like, what a dick. Like, this guy's got to go. So at that point, I stopped. I was a huge fan of that band. And I was like, okay, never meet the bands you like. Never meet your heroes.
Last question. Last question. Who is the best band that we've never heard yet?
Shit, man. Summer Sleep, of course.
I was waiting for that
according
one.
To my streams, I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't know if he put it under Poke or Six Stone Jugs, but Rob Arment is my favorite songwriter. He taught me songwriting. Jolene Windmiller, you got to check her out. Windmill, like the thing that spins. Jolene Windmiller. Yep. I have a few, so we're gonna rattle off 3 or 4 here. Other bands. My old band, Those Nights. I love them. I'm gonna send you their hip hop stuff. I'm trying to find like what other bands I can put over. I like the Menzingers. They have a big song called "America, I Love You, But You're Freaking Me Out." It's very true right now. I'm trying to think of like what other ones Cigarettes After Sex. The band Lorn, Lorn, their song "Acid Rain." That's like nonstop. And again, Summer Sleep, man, because I would love. Put it this way, I'm not trying to sound like the bitter old douche, and I really feel like I came off as the bitter old douche in this interview, but I just love what I do, and I wish you guys loved it too. And I'm just gonna put it there.
There you go. So where can people find Summer Sleep?
The main site is summersleep.com. On Twitter, I'm SummerSleepATX. Facebook and Instagram, SummerSleep Music. I do the Mission Pro Wrestling show. I call it The Mish. You can find that on Mission Pro Wrestling's page, on their Facebook. If you hear Insane, Jasmine Allure, and a couple other wrestlers, it's their entry music. So there's a lot of avenues to hear us. And also on the retailers, I'm on, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify. I mean, if you can fog a mirror, I'm on there. TikTok. I just found out TikTok's a thing. I'm on there. My music is on there. On Facebook for your Facebook stories, you can add Summer Sleep. Like our music is all over the place.
That's awesome. Hey, Pete, man, I want to thank you for taking the time out to stop by. It was cool. It was really cool to meet you throughout all the chaos for Mission Pro Wrestling, and
Yeah.
it's cool to sit down and shoot the shit, and talk about you, talk about your career and your thoughts on music and stuff. So that'll be it for this week on DNC Radio. This is D. You can follow me at DNC Digital on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Guys, if you've grown a beard throughout the entire pandemic, don't be afraid. Your beard's going to look good. All you got to do is go to Can You Handlebar. Can You Handlebar is an American-made company that makes 95% natural products to take care of your mustache, your beard. They got combs, they got brushes, they have beard balms, beard oils, mustache wax, and cool shirts and hats. So what you're going to do, take advantage of the special that they have for my listeners. Yes, you. Go to canyouhandlebar.com. Use my promo code DNC Digital for 15% off. That'll be it for this week. This is D for Pete Martin. I am out. You guys have a great night. Stay safe.